1 minute ago. 50 Cent reveals what Jay-Z and Diddy gave up to stay on Top 50 Cent doesn't hesitate. He starts with evidence. A video, an old one. Diddy on stage casually slapping Jay-Z's back, public playful, but according to 50, loaded with implication. It wasn't just a celebration. It was a performance, a symbol of something deeper and darker beneath the glitz of hip-hop royalty. The video resurfaces not as nostalgia, but as a clue. Because 50 Cent never one to stay silent, has been steadily peeling back the layers of what he claims is a facade. His message, Diddy and Jay-Z aren't just music moguls. They're gatekeepers of a system where silence is currency and loyalty often comes at a hidden price. Ever since the lawsuit filed by Cassie against Diddy rocked the industry with allegations that include coercion and abuse, 50 Cent has gone on the offensive. He's not just calling out Diddy. He's dragging Jay-Z into the light, suggesting that silence in the face of scandal might not just be complicity, but protection. Months prior, Diddy affectionately declared that only 2 people are allowed to call him by his real name, his mother and Jay-Z. The statement wasn't just sentimental. It was strategic, a public reinforcement of closeness. Their long-standing alliance remains proudly displayed from shared photos on Diddy's website to public tributes at industry events. But now 50 Cent raises a sharper question. Is that closeness built on mutual admiration or mutual secrets? The stage is set. 50's accusations are layered. He claims Jay-Z has not only benefited from his silence, but implies there's a mirrored history of questionable rise. It's not new. He's challenged Jay's persona before. In a 2009 interview, 50 described Jay-Z as having a messianic complex. He thinks he's Jesus. He framed Jay as a man willing to climb over friends, label mates, and principles to secure his throne. He's not alone. Uncle Ron, a former bodyguard tied to the inner circle, echoed the sentiment. He alleged that both Jay and Beyonce have knowingly sidelined or harmed those who challenged them. The list of names left behind is long. Beanie Siegel, Freeway Big L, all allegedly sacrificed literally or metaphorically on Jay's path to dominance. Jaguar Wright, another former industry insider, adds weight to the accusations. Her claims have circled for years, suggesting that those close to Jay-Z often suffer unexplained downfalls. She recounts the tragic end of Big L, an early star in Jay's orbit. She hints that Jay's ascent was marked by a pattern. Those around him disappeared, fell off, or faded into obscurity, sometimes under mysterious or tragic circumstances. For decades, Jay-Z maintained an image of controlled power. Rarely emotional, always calculated. But then came a rare moment, captured, shared, and dissected, where the stoic mogul cracked. In front of cameras at an event few expected him to attend, amid the Diddy scandal, Jay showed raw emotion. No script, no prepared remarks. Just a man caught in a storm he could no longer navigate with silence alone. It wasn't just the Cassie lawsuit that created waves. It was the domino effect. Jay-Z skipped his annual Rock Nation brunch. He began withdrawing from public appearances. Some saw this as strategy. Others saw guilt. Meanwhile, 50 Cent pressed on. He accused Jay-Z of aligning with Diddy not out of brotherhood, but out of necessity. That Jay's public loyalty masked a quiet fear that distancing himself now would force questions about his own past. Diddy might be sloppy, 50 implied, but Jay is calculated. The implication Jay-Z has avoided scandal, not because of innocence, but because of precision. And then there's the business side. 50 accuses Jay of manipulating his way to trophies, accolades, and status, while others like 50 himself got paid but were denied recognition. The cost? Silence. Allegiance? Compromise. The music industry isn't just competitive, it's ruthless. In the 1990s and 2000s, careers were built or buried based on alliances. Rumors of secret contracts, unspoken rules, and behind-the-scenes favors have long haunted the business. What 50 is doing now isn't just exposing Diddy, It's putting the entire ecosystem under the microscope. Jay-Z, according to 50, represents the elite class that signs the deals, controls the awards, and shapes the narrative. Diddy may have been the flash, but Jay was the architect. And in a world where perception is everything, that makes Jay-Z far more dangerous. As the allegations build, so does public fascination. Not just with the specifics of the Cassie case, but with what it might unearth. If Diddy falls, who else gets pulled down with him? What NDAs might be broken? What tapes might exist? What stories have yet to surface? And then there's the death of Coolio. Though officially ruled as cardiac-related, whispers began immediately. In his final interviews, Coolio hinted at knowledge he feared sharing. Some believe he held stories about the very men now under scrutiny. Stories that might have cost him dearly. The point isn't to draw conclusions, it's to ask questions, to examine patterns, to understand how influence operates at the highest levels through silent symbolism and sometimes sacrifice. What 50 Cent has done is shatter the illusion of untouchability. He's made it clear these aren't just icons, they're men. And in his view, they're men with things to hide. What happens next depends not just on evidence, but on whether others will follow his lead. When the cameras turn off and the headlines fade, what remains is the structure. The invisible machinery that shields power, silences dissent, and rewards obedience. This, according to 50 Cent and a growing number of insiders, is what has allowed Diddy and Jay-Z to endure despite decades of rumors, lawsuits, and personal fallout. Cassie's lawsuit was just a breach in the wall. Filed with disturbing allegations against Diddy, it reopened questions many had been too afraid to ask. Why have so many voices, once part of the inner circle, gone quiet? And why do those who speak out often disappear from the industry's spotlight? 50 Cent claims it's not just about money, it's about infrastructure, about how reputations are managed, scandals are buried, and narratives are controlled before they even surface. Diddy for years cultivated an image of flamboyant success. Jay-Z, by contrast, perfected the art of restraint. But both 50 alleges built their empires not just on talent, but on carefully managed silence. Take the case of Kim Porter, longtime associate, former partner to Diddy, and mother of 3 of his children. Her sudden passing, officially due to pneumonia, left many unsettled, especially when early autopsy reports hinted at toxins in her body, and the cause was quietly revised. Porter reportedly had been working on a tell-all before her death. Just like Andre Harrell, the industry legend, who mentored both Diddy and Mary J. Blige. Just like Heavy D. Just like Al B. Sure, who miraculously survived a coma and later described the timing as too close for comfort. All of them had ties to the same core of power. All of them were preparing to publish, reflect, or expose. And yet, it's not just the dead who have been silenced. Artists like Beanie Sigel and Freeway, once championed by Jay-Z, found themselves abandoned. Their loyalty was unreciprocated. Business came first. Careers were sacrificed, and when they spoke out, they were dismissed as disgruntled or irrelevant. But, according to 50, these weren't isolated cases. They were part of a pattern. The pattern was simple: protect the throne no matter the cost. 50 Cent's critique of Jay-Z is laser-focused. He doesn't just accuse him of complicity, he accuses him of orchestration, of being the one who doesn't get his hands dirty, but ensures the dirt is done. Diddy may have been messy, flamboyant, and at times reckless. Jay, he says, was the strategist, the one who knew the value of image, of branding, of keeping a clean front, while others took the fall. It's a damning narrative, and not without risk. 50's own brand is at stake, but he appears undeterred, even energized. His mission isn't just personal, it's systemic. He wants to expose what he believes is a culture of silence that has protected the elite while crushing the vulnerable. And the allegations don't stop at career sabotage. They extend into darker territory, rumors of exploitation, manipulation, and quiet cover-ups. Jaguar Wright, in multiple interviews, described what she called a culture of fear. one where assistants, bodyguards, and even artists were expected to look away, to stay quiet, to endure. One name recurs: Jimmy Henchman, a controversial figure with deep ties to the industry and an even deeper rap sheet. While negotiating a proffer agreement with federal agents over a decade ago, he was allegedly asked pointed questions not about his own crimes, but about Diddy, about alleged misconduct that had circulated quietly for years. Why would federal investigators ask such questions unless complaints had been lodged, whispers had been followed? The public doesn't know the full details, but the trail of inquiry is there, and the implications are chilling. Meanwhile, Jay-Z continues to move with precision. His team issued a vague statement emphasizing privacy, deflecting attention from specifics. He appeared briefly at the Grammy Awards, offered gratitude, then exited quickly. No after-parties, no public statements, just absence. For 50, that absence speaks volumes. Smart, he says, but too smart to be innocent. Yet despite his relentless accusations, 50 Cent walks a fine line. He doesn't claim to have definitive proof. What he offers is a mosaic, a collage of moments, patterns, testimonies, and inconsistencies. He asks the audience to connect the dots, to question the official stories, to consider the cost of unchecked power. It's working. Social media ignited. Debates exploded across Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Some fans defended their idols, accusing 50 of jealousy. Others applauded his fearlessness, calling him a necessary disruptor in an industry too long dominated by silence and control. Even within the celebrity world, reactions varied. Some offered support, subtle gestures, likes on posts, vague quotes about truth and justice. Others went quiet. Too quiet. What 50 Cent has done is create a fracture. Not just between himself and the icons he challenges, but within the fan base, the industry, and the narrative. He's not just exposing Diddy or Jay-Z. He's exposing the system that allows them to rise and protects them when the past catches up. And as that system starts to falter, so does the illusion of invincibility. The illusion of invincibility doesn't shatter all at once. It begins with hairline fractures, moments of doubt, inconsistencies in the script, public missteps that don't align with the carefully constructed image. For years, both Diddy and Jay-Z operated in rare, untouchable, revered, strategic. But now, under the glare of public scrutiny and insider revelations, those cracks are starting to widen. Jay-Z's empire is a fortress, carefully managed, discreetly operated. His moves are calculated, his partnerships precise. But in a world that increasingly demands transparency, even the most protected castles are vulnerable. And what 50 Cent has been doing isn't just throwing stones, it's spotlighting the chinks in the armor. Take, for instance, the abrupt shift in Jay-Z's public behavior. He skipped his traditional Rock Nation brunch, an event synonymous with power plays and celebrity alignment. His Grammy appearance was clinical, except the award exit quietly. No interviews, no fanfare. For an artist once known for celebrating his wins publicly, this was a noticeable change. And in the industry, silence isn't just absence, it's signal. It suggested something deeper. Not guilt, perhaps, but wariness. Awareness that the room had changed, that the loyalty once taken for granted was now uncertain. Meanwhile, whispers about Jay-Z's past continued to resurface, some through new voices, others through old clips gaining fresh traction. Dame Dash, his former partner at Rockefeller Records, had long accused Jay of betrayal, of stepping over those who built alongside him. Their fallout was no secret, but what was once considered personal now feels political. Jaguar Wright reignited a controversial thread referencing Jay-Z's partnership with R. Kelly. A full album, a national tour, despite what many in the industry already knew about Kelly's history. Jay-Z's decision then wasn't just artistic. It was business. Strategic. Profitable. But in hindsight, it reads differently as another moment where morality took a backseat to empire. These aren't criminal accusations. They're character assessments, But in an era where public perception shapes legacy, they hit just as hard. The myth of the mogul, flawless, visionary, untouchable is being replaced by a more human, more complicated figure. One capable of misjudgment, of self-preservation, of silence. Then came the resurfaced story of Aaliyah, a woman whose name carries a halo of reverence and loss. It was Dame Dash again recalling how betrayed he felt when Jay-Z allegedly pursued her. This too was years ago. But in a climate where power dynamics are under the microscope, old decisions gain new weight. The narrative once controlled by silence and reverence is now competing with memory and consequence. But even as Jay-Z's past is re-examined, Diddy's present is imploding. The Cassie case opened a floodgate. Allegations from decades ago are now being corroborated by industry insiders, former employees, and longtime observers. Each day, another story, another clip, another piece of a puzzle that many refuse to believe existed. And, at the center of it all, is the question who knew, what, and when 50 Cent has made his stance clear. In his view, Jay-Z didn't just know, he survived by knowing, by aligning when it suited him and retreating when necessary. He portrays Jay not as an enabler, but as a tactician, one who mastered the game so thoroughly that he never had to answer for what others merely whispered. But even a tactician can be cornered. The industry is watching. So is the public. No longer passive, no longer satisfied with PR statements and red carpet photos. The internet has a long memory, and justice, at least in the court of opinion, is no longer deferred. Even allies are growing cautious. Celebrity friendships that once seemed ironclad now feel tentative. Invitations rescinded, photos deleted, projects delayed, and behind it all, a sense of waiting. Waiting to see if the next shoe drops. Waiting to see who speaks next. 50 Cent, in contrast, has become more emboldened. Where others tread carefully, he charges. His social media posts are blunt, biting, and relentless. He taunts. He challenges. He dares others to confront what he believes has been hiding in plain sight for years. To some, it's personal vendetta. To others, it's whistleblowing. But whatever the motive, the effect is undeniable. The unspoken code of protection is unraveling. Because it's not just about Diddy anymore. It's about legacy. About how men who built themselves into symbols are now being forced to reckon with the consequences of the shadows they ignored or helped cast. Jay-Z, for decades, stood above the fray. When scandals hit others, he remained poised. When artists clashed, he mediated. When controversies erupted, he vanished. But now, there's nowhere to vanish to. The world is watching. And in the tension between silence and truth, between loyalty and legacy, between power and vulnerability, lies the next chapter of this unfolding reckoning. There's a word that surfaces in moments like this, omerta, the code of silence. Once associated with criminal syndicates, it now echoes across boardrooms, studios, and green rooms in the entertainment industry. It's not enforced by threat, but by power, by fear of exile, by loss of access, opportunity protection. That's the cost 50 Cent is daring to reject. And he's not alone in asking who else stayed silent, and at what price. As the fallout from the Cassie lawsuit against Diddy continues to ripple through the culture, the implications are no longer confined to Diddy alone. They're widening, reaching back across decades, questioning the alliances and silences that shaped an entire generation of black entertainment power brokers. Central to this moment is the belief pushed loudly by 50 Cent that Jay-Z's silence is not virtue, but strategy. He frames Jay as a master of the long game, a man who understands that survival at the top demands sacrifice, calculation, and detachment. But that kind of strategy doesn't just preserve careers, it shapes them. It protects the machinery of influence. And it raises a grim possibility that silence isn't the absence of knowledge, but a transaction. The world is changing. Audiences no longer consume content without demanding context. Social media has dismantled the distance between celebrity and scrutiny. And in this new terrain, omerta no longer guarantees safety, it provokes suspicion. There's a moment from a recent podcast that's gone viral. Cuba Gooding Jr. recounts a seemingly benign party on Diddy's yacht. Music drinks stars. But then he mentions how a harmless photo, just him sitting next to Diddy, was repurposed to imply something sordid. He clarifies, laughs it off. But the undertone is unmistakable in today's climate. Everything is reinterpreted. Every friendship is forensic. Every silence suspect. It's not just about guilt. It's about proximity. About the network of relationships that allowed behaviors to go unchallenged. About the parties, the collaborations, the shared investments. About who was there. Who benefited. Who looked the other way. 50 Cent is exploiting that shift. He's not just presenting information. He's framing it in a new context. One where Jay-Z's polished detachment is no longer invulnerable, but provocative. He accuses Jay of orchestrating his brand as an image of resilience and reformation, rising from Marcy projects to billionaire status, from street rapper to cultural statesman. But beneath that narrative, 50 suggests, is a trail of betrayals, abandoned allies, and quiet compliance. The stories pile up. Stevie J, once estranged from Diddy, is brought back into the fold. Al B, sure barely surviving a coma, hints at deeper truths. Even Kim Porter's death is revisited this time through the lens of industry history and suppressed memoirs. Then there's the haunting roll call of Uptown Records, Andre Harrell, Heavy D. Kim Porter gone, the survivors, Diddy, Al B, sure barely. And as one voice in the documentary points out, they all had one thing in common. They were working on tell-alls when they died. Books, memoirs, projects meant to lift the veil. That pattern isn't just eerie. It's disruptive. Because it feeds into the growing belief that the industry doesn't just silence dissent, it preempts it. Jay-Z hasn't responded directly. He doesn't need to. His power has always been to stay above the fray, to let others drown in drama while he builds legacy. But the problem with legacy is that it's not built on what you control. It's built on what others remember. And people are remembering. The internet is resurfacing interviews, comparing timelines, analyzing lyrics, tracking every friendship fracture and quiet fallout. What was once gossip is now research. What was once dismissed is now documented. Even Kanye West, known for volatility more than strategy, has offered cryptic support to Jay-Z during his emotional moment. But that too reads differently now. Reads, was it solidarity or a warning shot cloaked in sympathy? Because beneath all of this is the question no one in the industry wants to answer. If Jay-Z truly knew, then what did his silence protect his brand? His peers or himself? This is where 50 Cent's position becomes more than petty. It becomes existential. He's not just asking who did what. He's asking who stood by while it happened. Who climbed over whose pain? Who watched the cost and still cashed in? Who chose the trophies over the truth? And he knows the risk. Exposing a system means becoming a target. It means being painted as bitter, difficult, unreliable. But 50 has always embraced confrontation as strategy. In a world that rewards silence, he's choosing volume. That choice is reshaping the conversation, not just about Diddy, not just about Jay-Z, but about power itself, about the mechanics of protection, about what success demands and who gets left behind. In that new light, even Jay-Z's achievements are being reframed. Yes, he climbed. But now people are asking at what cost, and on whose shoulders. The answer may never be clean. But the question is no longer avoidable. In the end, every empire faces its reckoning, not just through scandal, but through the slow erosion of belief. Jay-Z, once the embodiment of reinvention and aspirational Black excellence, now stands in a place few expected, not accused, but questioned. Not denounced, but doubted. And for a legacy built on perception, that shift is seismic. This story was never just about Diddy. Not for 50 Cent. Not for those watching. Not anymore. The real story is about what we choose to protect. about how the culture, the media, and even the fans become complicit in maintaining the myth of the untouchable icon. The headlines might focus on Diddy's lawsuit, the viral videos, the suggestive whispers, but underneath all of it is a growing disillusionment with those we once saw as unshakable. Jay-Z's silence, once admired as stoicism, now reads as evasion. His absence from the annual Rock Nation brunch, his minimalist Grammy appearance, the calculated distancing. In the past, these would be seen as moves of a chess master. Today, they feel like the instincts of a man surrounded by shifting ground. But Jay-Z isn't collapsing. That's the twist. He's recalibrating, quietly reinforcing the walls of his legacy, positioning himself as a symbol of endurance rather than entanglement. When footage of his emotional moment surfaced, reactions split. Some called it humanizing a rare crack in the veneer. Others called it strategic damage control, masked as vulnerability. Either way, the effect was clear, the story changed. From accusations against others to sympathy for the man caught in the storm. Even as Diddy's name dominates legal briefs and media leaks, Jay-Z has kept his name largely out of courtrooms, but not out of conversation. Because what 50 Cent has done, effectively, is shift the cultural lens. He's reframed Jay-Z from king to question mark. Not by proving guilt, but by proving proximity. And proximity, in a world that now values accountability over access, is dangerous. This isn't about proving criminality. It's about narrative. About who controls it and who gets to rewrite it. For decades, Jay-Z has been the narrator of his own legend. Every album, every interview, every business deal sculpted that image. But now others are picking up the pen. The narrative is changing. And it's doing so without needing court verdicts or smoking guns. In this era, reputation is reshaped not by legal decisions, but by collective belief. By who speaks, who listens, and who repeats. What 50 Cent has done is force the conversation. He's made silence feel like a statement. He's turned Jay-Z's detachment into evidence of something larger, something systemic. He's also reminded the world that success doesn't erase the need for scrutiny. That status doesn't absolve, but this isn't just an attack. It's a challenge. 50 Cent isn't trying to dethrone Jay-Z. He's trying to change the rules of the game, to make it so that truth-telling isn't punished, that loyalty isn't weaponized, that silence is no longer the price of entry. And in doing so, he's given voice to others, former insiders, forgotten collaborators, those pushed to the edges of the industry. The ones who always knew, but never had a microphone. Jay-Z, for now, remains the architect of his fate. He still holds the influence, the partnerships, the cultural weight. But he also now carries a question mark he can't shake. One that will shadow every move, every tribute, every speech. That question, what did he give up to stay on top? Diddy's downfall may be the headline. But Jay-Z's legacy is the real story. Because if the throne was built on silence, then the true test of greatness isn't how high you rise, but what you're willing to say when the truth comes knocking. And now, the world is listening. Not just to what Jay-Z says, but to what he refuses to say. The silence that once protected now speaks the loudest.